what we have on now is the 3 carburetors, the 3 fuel lines, and the 3 band clamps are installed. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the throttle cables, like so. I won't tighten these just yet. I just want to get them inside. So throttle cables are installed. I have these caps here hand tight, so we'll come back after and tighten them up. The next thing I'm gonna do is insert the choke cables. Let's start with the furthest one. So I'm just gonna insert that inside, push that down, and then rotate that brass fitting. Just like that. There, that's tight. Move that boot down. And the choke is located right here on the right hand side, so I'm just going to try lifting this up. And that's how the choke works. Just like that. It just pulls just to stay a little bit on there. So the next step is to install the air box. So the air box has these rubber boots here that fit over top of the intake side of the carburetor. So what I've done is I've just put a little bit of grease on these boots just to make it slide over the carburetor easily. And they've got little grooves on right here. I take it that that's just they should be, you know, facing down. This fitting here should look like this, but this part broke off, so I managed just to cut the fitting off flush with this, and I just shoved a little line in there, and I think that will do the trick. Let's get this in here. It might take a little bit of wiggling. I guess I was wrong, folks. On second thought, it looks like these little dimples need to be on top, because it looks like they mesh up to these areas here on the carburetor. Ha! You know what they say. First, when you don't succeed, try again. Those boots kind of, you know, they come and they butt up against the carburetor like that. So there you have it, folks. That's how that goes. And then there's going to be a bolt that goes in underneath the bracket that secures here. And then there's 2 over here. So I have those bolts ready. So I'm going to put in these 2 on this side. I have the 3 bolts installed in here. As you can see, you can see the parts of them sticking out. They're installed. I'm just going to close this in, folks, just so I can have a look at what this looks like when it's all in. I just want to get a sense of what we're dealing with. I've never worked on a machine like this before, so I'm just figuring out things as I go. The people that are watching that know this machine, they probably already know what has to happen next, but I don't. I know that I have to come in here and install these lines from the air box to the carburetor. This is what I wanted to see here. This is where the CDI box goes. I guess that mounts up here, but the cable seems to be quite snug. So let's try taking these things out. Is this going to actually fit here? I guess this goes like this, but that's awfully tight. What should have happened is that cable should go around this. Holy jeez, that's a big job. Here's some information sharing for anyone who's working on this. So what I've done is I've removed this pipe here off of here. I've removed this pipe in order to get this line, which goes to the coils on this side. Instead of coming around this pipe, I ran it on the inside. So now when you see, if you see, this aligns very well on the air box. And these electrical wires, they're, you know, there's a little bit of tension on them, but it's a lot better than what it was before. So I'll just cinch this down a little bit. So two screws hold the CDI box up on top. And now what I got to do here is reinstall this coolant hose and then use a pair of adjustable wrenches to squeeze this back in place. I'll get this back where it was, just by lining it up with the markings here, very close to it. So that's back in place. There's this pipe and this little clamp here. What I'll do here is I'll just take a little bit off this pipe because it looks like the end is a bit frayed. That fell down. I'll get that in a second. I'll reinstall this. Maybe just move it on a little bit further on here, and then use a pair of pliers like this. Hopefully we can get this clamp over top of that housing. Oh, here we go. Just wiggle it. There. The other connector that I had to remove was this, which I presume is like a temperature sensor. I unplugged that temporarily. And this little guy, he goes right here. He just connects there. And then there was a black tie wrap. Actually, what I'll do is, I think I'm gonna route him. It's a very kind of sloppy connection. There's not much to it, I'll tell you that. Doesn't seem like there's very much contact on here. We'll see if that works. We might have to look into that later. I'll put a tie wrap on here a bit later. And then here, folks, this looks like, if I had to guess, I'd say this is probably to hold these two. Normally you shouldn't, like in my case, there may not be too much of a need to set all this in just yet, because I'd like to do a first start. You never know, I might have to come back in here again and set things back up, because you know everything's not 100% perfect. But for now, at least we get an idea, just you know where things go. I guess maybe one other remaining part. You can see this air box. Looks like it intersects with this part here of the hood. And what I found, I think this is supposed to just fit here like this, if that makes sense. We can just like put that there for now. I'll look into maybe getting maybe another one of those. What we have left to kind of button up is those little yellow lines to the carburetors. So that'll be one step we have to do. And then the other things we have to install before we forget are these little metal tabs like this. I guess these metal tabs are used to cinch down or to keep the two halves of the air box held together like that. That's going to be really fun to try to get off later, but oh well, let's hope we don't have to do that a whole bunch of times. Let's try putting this one on the other way. So let's just put all these on for now. Looks like there's one that goes right back here, right where the brake line is. There's probably a trick to this, but for now I'm just going carefully. Take this. Clean up that. Then you come in here like this and you just wiggle that on like that. Grab this end. He has to go and plug in there like that. Okay, so that's good enough. That's just a little plastic line. I'm gonna do the same for this one, but I'm gonna get a wrench and I'm gonna try to turn that connector 90 degrees. But first, let's get it on the carburetor. Wiggle it on there, up and down, side to side. Now, what we could do, folks, is I could just leave that well enough alone and just come in from the underside up. Or I could rotate. Oh yeah, look everyone. And just rotate that to the side. Same process, just take your needle nose pliers and just work it slowly up on the connector here. I think this is meant just to be like a small little vacuum line. What I'm just gonna do, I'm gonna leave the little segment of hose that I've put in there already and just cut this back, cut maybe here. What I wanted to do is just sort of mimic what the other ones are doing. Hi, welcome back. We're still working on the 1997 Polaris XLT Touring Snowmobile here. What you saw us do just in the previous part was getting the carburetors back installed, the clamps and other parts, the fuel lines, the fuel filter. We put all this back on. In fact, we had the air box and the air filter and all those lines hooked up. And then once all that was done, I put fuel in the tank. Unfortunately, it didn't start. The electric start works. The starter engaged. The engine turned over. From that point of view, I'm satisfied, but the engine didn't show any life. I used the trouble light, and I noticed that when everything was installed, I could see down, and I noticed there was absolutely no fuel in the fuel filter. So as you can see, my fuel filter uses clear plastic, and as the engine was turning over, I assumed the fuel pump was working, but I wasn't getting any fuel in here. So I basically called it a day, and I came back here in the morning. And what I've done is I've removed the air box, I removed the CDI, I removed the fuel shutoff from the mounting area. Let me bring you up to speed on where I think the issue is. There's no fuel getting to the engine. So I know that all my fuel lines they're not clogged because they're brand new. I have a brand new fuel filter. The only thing that could really be the problem is the fuel pump, which is blocked. But I don't believe so. So I'm starting with the easiest or the most direct area to troubleshoot. So what I've done now is I've exposed this connector right here, which is threaded into the fuel tank. You'll remember that the fuel line is connected here. Okay, so the fuel comes out of the tank into this line, through the filter, into the pump, and then from the pump into the engine. Interesting fact, let's pay attention to the fact that this is one end of the fuel tank right here. This is the bottom of the tank. This is more or less the top of the tank. The fitting itself, the fitting itself is like essentially in the center. So there's all this space here that needs to be filled up with fuel for the fuel to reach this point if there's nothing on the other side. So using a 15 millimeter socket, deep socket, carefully take this off. And this is what I found. This is the fitting that's threaded into the tank. This is where the fuel line connects in the engine bay. There should be a fuel line that's connected on this side that's about 16 to 18 inches long that comes out of the tank, right, about this level, comes out of the tank, and then it drops down to the bottom of the gas tank. So imagine it goes like this. In fact, I can demonstrate it with this is fuel line. So there should be a line on the inside of the tank that's about 16 to 18 inches long that sits in the bottom of the gas tank. And at the end of this line, there should be a brass fitting that has like a screen on it. So it's like the fuel pre-filter. So I have a filter here, but there's another filter on the end of the fuel line pickup. So the reason why I was having issues with not getting this engine to start is that, first of all, my fuel level is about a quarter level in the tank, and therefore, as the engine was turning over, I was just, the engine isn't sucking any fuel, or there's no fuel being pumped through the pump because there's, obviously it's just pulling in air. On one side, I'm glad that we found this. Apparently, according to some snowmobile forums or Polaris forums on the internet, this is a common issue with these kinds of snowmobiles, this vintage, the mid-90s. So with that respect, what I need to do is source a new fuel line, which is resistant to gasoline because it has to live inside the tank, inside gas forever. And I need a pre-filter or a line filter. So once I get those parts, we'll come back again in another video, and we'll put it all back together. I'll show you my way of how I would go about assembling these new parts, putting it into the tank, and then putting everything back together, and hopefully getting the engine to start. So I hope you're enjoying this series. I know I am. This is really a lesson of trial and error because we had spent considerable time getting everything under the hood here to a level where I thought I could turn the key and start up, but it looks like there's still a few things that need to be resolved before we're out snowmobiling. And from the looks of it outside, we still have some time. So stick with us. In the next video, we'll put this, we'll connect the fuel line, we'll get it reinstalled, put everything back together, and hopefully we get this thing started. So stay tuned. Bye for now.